Okay, good morning class. For today, we will just have some reminders or additional information regarding your chapters 1 and 2. So, the first part will be on the title. So, we'll be focusing on the 5 titles that we have. These are the working titles. So, we have Establishing a Community Library in Padre Garcia, Batangas, Establishing a Family Business During Pandemic, Content creating as a job among selected local YouTubers, marketing strategies of fast food chains during pandemic. We also have establishing courier service in Padre Garcia, Batangas. So for the title, we'll just have to review. So we should not have a very long title. It should not be not that specific but not too general. Maybe we'll be allowing up to 18 words. So for example, if we will be counting establishing a community library in Padre Garcia, Batangas, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words. So this is okay. Establishing a family business, this is very general. So we have to make this title specific. It only has 1, 2, 3, 4 words. And then for content creating, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 9 words. So that would be okay. For marketing strategies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we will add some more words. And for establishing courier service, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe we'll be adding few words here. So again, for the title, it should not be that general and it should not be also that very specific. It should be containing at least 15 to 18 words, or if we cannot avoid more than 18 words, maybe 20 words could be okay also. If we will be encoding our title, it should be in an inverted pyramid style. Inverted, pabaliktad na pyramid. So for example, your title will be having 2 lines. For example, establishing a community library in, and then at the second line, you will be having Padre Garcia, Batangas. You can identify or you can know if your title is short if it only has 1 line. And then it will be too long if it has 4 lines. So 4 lines is too much. Maybe up to 2 lines or 3 lines. If we will be using the inverted pyramid style. So how can we make the title specific? So by adding some important words that would be very significant also with the title. We will have first the establishing a community library in Padre Garcia, Batangas. Class, pakinig niyo pa ba ako? Can you still hear me?
Opo.
Okay. Maliwanag naman, maliwanag.
Opo.
Okay.
Opo.
You can take note of your questions. Then you can encode your questions in the chat box. And then I will be replying on your queries. For establishing a community library in Padre Garcia, Batangas, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words. Can we still make this specific? Kaya pa kaya natin gawing specific? Where is Mr. Alagar?
Masama po ang pakiramdam.
Not feeling well. Okay, establishing a community library in Padre Garcia, Batangas. I think this is okay already. We're going to establish a community library where in Padre Garcia, Batangas. We will go to establishing a family business. Where is Miss Dimayuga?
Sir, pwede ka pong establishing a family food businesses in Padre Garcia, Batangas.
We will insert food, no? Establishing a family
Apa. Food
business
in Padre
Garcia, Batangas. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay na siya. Establishing a family food business in Padre Garcia, Batangas. And then, content creating as a job among selected local YouTubers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay na din to, yung content creating as a job among selected local YouTubers. Miss Hernandez,
Yes po.
ito pa rin naman ang sa inyo, no? Ito pa rin naman, no?
Apo.
Okay, sige. Next is marketing strategies of fast food chains. So we will add few words here. Marketing strategies of fast food chains. Where is Manalo Aubrey?
Sir, small scale fast food chains po.
Small scale. Of small
Opo.
scale.
Pwede pong lagyan pa ng Padre Garcia po sana.
Oh, that could be okay. Marketing strategies of small scale fast food chains in Padre Garcia, Batangas. Okay. Marketing strategies of small scale fast food chains in Padre Garcia, Batangas. If we will be counting the words 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay na siya. And then we have establishing courier service in Padre Garcia, Batangas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is very short, but this is okay. But do you have any suggestion, Miss Divine Grace Tiope? Divine, is this already our working title, or you can still add few words here? Nandito ba si Divine?
Apo.
May dadagdag pa tayo or okay na siya?
Wala na po kami idadagdag.
Parang kompleto naman siya, no? Kahit maikli lang siya. We will establishing courier service in Padre Garcia, Batangas. Okay, so we are through with the working title. Again, if we will be encoding this, more or less most of the titles, 2 lines. Ano, 2 lines if we will be encoding the title. But I think the courier service and community library will only have 1 line. Ano, so we cannot apply the inverted pyramid style, but that could be okay. That is okay. And then for the introduction, did you make your introduction? For the introduction, what we will be including there is we'll be starting from a wider scope, going down to a narrower scope. Meaning we have to make an introduction that in one way or another will let the audience or the readers identify what is your topic all about. We'll be giving parang a general preview of your thesis or your research. So the focus of the first topic is community library. The second one is family business. The third one is content creating in YouTube. And then small scale marketing strategies of fast food chains and courier service. So, for example, you have to read related literature and studies because you can get there some important points that you can include in your introduction. It is similar with introducing yourself so that, for example, your classmates can identify who you are. Not that deeply, but at least they can have a grasp of what the topic is all about. And then, for example, I'll be giving an example. For example, the topic is level of poverty in, for example, Padre Garcia, Batangas. So I have to include in my introduction what is the status of poverty in the world. And then, for example, in Asia, and then in the Philippines, and I'll be going down to Padre Garcia. So I'll be mentioning some statistics or the status of the level of poverty. For example, if it is very high, low, or very low. And then at the end of it, to connect the paragraphs, we can use transitional devices. When we say transitional devices, those are terms that will connect the previous paragraph to the next paragraph. For example, additionally, Yun. Moreover, in relation with, yon, so that we can have the continuity of the thought. So that upon reading from the first paragraph down to the last paragraph, it would be clear enough what is your topic all about. Yun, that is what we want to emphasize in the introduction. Also, in the introduction, you have to include your rationale, meaning what made your group become interested with the topic. Yun. Or you can also mention the research gap that you want to solve, or the confusion or the conflicts that you want to solve or to give attention with. Maybe, or for sure, there are lots of previous studies that are related, but then still, we're looking for something that will be bridging the research gap. Again, when we say research gap, that is a part of the topic, of the previous topic, that was not solved, that still needed to be addressed with. Yan. That's why we are having this research writing. Do you have any question about the introduction? So from a wider scope, then narrow the scope, and then you include your rationale or your reason of choosing the topic. Do you have any question about the introduction? Class? Do you have any question? None? Leaders, do you have any question?
Wala na po. Wala
Okay,
po.
so I will proceed
Wala po.
with the next. The next part is the statement of the problem. This is one of the most important parts also of the contents of chapter 1, because you have to, this is where the questionnaire will be based. And the statement of the problem usually is very similar with the title. Again, for the statement of the problem or the SOP, we have two types of problems there. The first one is the general problem, and the second one is the specific problems, or these are the specific objectives. Usually, the general problem is the repetition of the title. For example, this study aims to, for example, identify the marketing strategies being used by the small-scale fast food chains in Padre Garcia, Batangas. That is the general problem. And then we also have the specific problems or specific objectives. That's why we have to include specifically. That's why it is specific. Specifically, this aims to answer the following questions. This is where we will be having at least 3 or 4 objectives or 3 problems that we want to answer or to address. For example, if our topic is on the level of poverty, usually the first question deals with what is the profile of the respondents in terms of, so we will only identify what particular profile that we want to get, meaning profile that is significant with the study or topic. Usually the first one is in terms of what? For example, in terms of sex. Most of the times, researchers use gender, but then usually, when we speak of gender is more than 2. So that's why it is more advisable to use sex, especially if your options are just 2. For example, male or female. Because if you have to put gender, you have to put there in the options the different genders that we have. For example, if the types of genders are, for example, male, female, transgender, we have to include their transgender. But for our research, I do advise that we'll be using the term sex, so that we will be having only 2 options to choose from. It's either male or female. And then sex has something to do with biological, biological sex. When you were born, it's either male or female. This is not about the preferences, okay? And then usually the age, if the strand is important, if your respondents are, for example, senior high school students, if your respondents are junior students, you have to include there the For example, the grade level, if it is grade 7, 8, 9, or 10. Or for example, if your respondents are adults, you can have their the age. No, or you can use, also in this, you can use the bracket, the age bracket. But then you have to have references. For example, 10 to 15, 16 to 20, 21 to 25. So that if we will be presenting that on chapter 4, using a table, for example, how many among the respondents are whose ages range from, for example, 10 to 15. If you have 100 respondents, we can have there, for example, those ages from 10 to 15, we have 20. And then for 16 to 20, we have 10, then so on and so forth. It is not that easy to make a statement of the problem because when we will be having the questionnaire, the distribution of the questionnaire, only then that we can find out if the statement of the problem is parallel or very much related with the questionnaire. That's why we have to make it sure that the statement of the problem is enough to answer or to provide the data that we need depending on the title that we have. For example, going back to marketing strategies of fast food chains, the focus there is a small scale. And then the focus also is on marketing strategies. And then fast food chains. And then we have to identify also, that's why the contents are related with one another. In making the SOP, we also have to consider the scope, the limitation, and limitation of the study. So after the first question in the specific problems or objective, what is the profile of the respondents in terms of age, and sex, strand, then so on and so forth. The second question, it should be very related to the topic itself or to the title itself. In the title, the level of poverty in Padre Garcia, Batangas, after writing the first SOP, which is what is the profile of the respondents in terms of, and then number 2, we can go with what? Considering the title, the level of poverty in Padre Garcia, Batangas. Status of, or maybe we can have additional information on the first question in terms of, we can also get the salary bracket of the parents. If we will be associating the salary with poverty. For example, we have to make it clear what is the definition of poverty, because we can also use the profile in terms of salary. For example, if the salary is 2,500 a month, is that salary a manifestation or a thing to be considered that a certain family is under the level of poverty? Class? Maybe. That's why we have the group members should brainstorm on the statement of the problem, because those questions are very important, because at the end of it, that is where we will be basing the questionnaire or the survey questionnaire that we will be making sa second quarter. For example, the level of poverty, what is the salary range? Maybe what is the salary range of the respondents? Salary range, siguro we can include that salary range. Maybe the occupation in the profile we can also include. And then we have to base also the SOP in the review of related literature and studies, because the more related studies and literature that we read, the better SOP that we can have, because we'll be having we have lots of bases na. We have many bases. That's why we can find it easier to make this statement of the problem. For example, if we will be accepting what is the salary bracket of the respondents, yan. In the profile, we can include the what's that? The work, the type of work that the parents have. And then we can also include, you have mentioned earlier what is the status, but what particular status or status that we will identify? Class. So for the data, of course, the municipality of a certain place has records of the work of a certain family, how many members are there in a certain household. Yon, we can go for interview in the municipality. Maybe I am not sure of the department where, maybe in where the one who is in charge of the census, doing the census, pwede tayong pumunta doon and we can ask for some data. But then we have to have a letter that it is for research purposes only. And usually, for example, I'll be giving the example. For example, content creating as a job among selected local YouTubers. For example, SOP number 3 in the content creating, di ba we can have what are the common contents? Yon. What are the common contents? Parang what are the common contents that are being created by the respondents? Yun. So that we can identify which among the type of contents are being created by the respondents. For example, entertainment, humor, jokes, educational, cooking, lifestyle, adventure, yun. And then, from there, we can identify which is the common content being created. Parang which is more famous sa mga contents nila. Yun. That could be one of the questions in the specific questions. What are the common contents being created by the respondents? Yun. And usually, the last question is based on the findings. Maybe this is question number 4 or question number 5, depending on the number of questions that you have in your SOP. Usually, the last question is based on the findings. What can be proposed to yon? For example, in the topic courier service, parang based on the findings, based on the findings, in what ways can courier service be better established or be of help in the certain locality? Yun. The last question usually depends on the title. Usually in humanities and social sciences, they will be proposing an action plan, yun, a management plan. But in your case, you will be suggesting or proposing something that is, for example, in marketing strategies, you will be parang suggesting another marketing strategy or localized marketing strategy. Yun. Usually, that last question in the SOP is what you will do so that this study, your present study, will be improved. Yun. Usually, for example, if a certain study is on evaluation, so meaning what you will be proposing is a management plan, yun nga, an action plan, a marketing plan, ano pa? Parang also establishing a business plan, yon, that could be. Again, and the statement of the problem, we have the general problem and the specific problems or objectives. The first SOP, specific objective, you can include or you cannot include the profile. But if you think that it is important so that it can be presented as well in chapter 4, you may include the profile of the respondents. Usually class, we have a line for the name, but usually the name is not that important because it is considered as confidential. That's why the respondents are not required to write their name in the questionnaire. For the conceptual framework, conceptual framework? Maybe you are confused. There are certain confusions on how to make the conceptual framework. Based on the context that we had studied a few weeks ago, we also have the theoretical framework, but we will not be using the theoretical framework. What we will be using is the conceptual framework, because conceptual framework is most of the times it is dependent on the researchers. That's why it is conceptual framework. The conceptual framework contains the research paradigm of the study. But before making the research paradigm of the study, you have first to introduce which concepts were you able to gather that you combine so that you can make this research paradigm or paradigm of the study. For example, if your topic is family food business, so the conceptual framework is, of course, based on a review of related literature and studies, how to put up a family business with a special focus with food. Family business, the special focus is on food. For example, you will be mentioning there establishing a business is not that an easy task. For you have to have this, so on and so forth. Several concepts such as are considered in establishing a family business, particularly food business. And you have to introduce. It is not similar to the content of introduction. It is more specific and it is more focused on your paradigm of the study. Maybe you have few paragraphs to introduce your framework, or you can use already used framework and apply some modifications, or you can apply some modification. For example, you have seen a similar framework, a conceptual framework similar with your studies, you can use that, but you can remove a part of it, or you can add other parts to it. But you have to mention who are the original authors, who are the researchers who use that specific conceptual framework. And then going to your research paradigm or paradigm, it is the illustration of your title and your statement of the problem. That's why before, my instructions to you were to make, you have to decide first whether you are better in making an illustration, or you are better in making questions, or you are better in creating a title, because it is very much related with one another. For example, if you are very good in making questions, upon making your statement of the problem, it is easier on your part to make the research paradigm. Also, it is easier on your part to make the title of your research, because upon seeing your research paradigm, yung unang tingin pa lang sa research paradigm, alam mo na yung title. Usually, the research paradigm is composed of, boxes, arrows, and lines. But we will not be too strict when it comes to arrows. As long as, after the research paradigm, you can explain the part of it, box per box. For example, the title is content creating as a job among selected local YouTubers. If you will be making the research paradigm of this, what could be the first box? What is the first box? So our keywords are content creating as a job, tapos selected local YouTubers. So if we will be making the illustration of it through research paradigm, how can we make or draw it? The first box may be what? If you have tried making your research paradigm of the study. Divine, if you were able to start making content
creating po.
Content
punta sa
creating.
job po.
Or you can also have content creator. You can have the first box as content creator. And then, dependent or depending on your SOP, the second box will be, for example, your question is, what are the common contents being created by the respondents? So after content creating, your second box will be, after the first box with the label content creator, the second box will be dealing with the types of contents, no? Type of contents. Yun. But that will be depending on your statement of the problem. Again, in short, the research paradigm should be reflective of the SOP and of the title, or the SOP should be reflective of the research paradigm and of the title, or the title should be reflective of the SOP and the research paradigm of the study. Sila yung related talaga, na kahit saan mo tingnan, whichever you will be looking at first, you will know already the other. For example, if you look at first at the SOP, you can easily identify the title and you can easily explain the research paradigm of your study. Do you have any question? Do you have any question? None? Do I make things clear? Class, especially the leaders or the members as well? Do you have any question? Class, do you have any question? Are you still there,
Ano po?
Okay.
Opo.
Sige, next is the scope, delimitation, and limitation of the study. According to different literatures, when we speak of scope, it deals with what your study covers or what are included in your study. And then when we speak of delimitation, it's the what your study did not focus with. And then when we speak of limitation, those are the weaknesses of your study. For example, this study covers the marketing strategies being used or applied by the small-scale fast food chains in Padre Garcia, Batangas. That is based on the group of Manalo Obrey, for example. Ang focus mo rin marketing strategies. However, for example, this study does not include what? Halimbawa, hindi kasama si marketing plan. And then when it comes to limitation, your limitation is due to time constraints. Your respondents are limited. The area of conducting the survey was also limited. That is included in the limitation. Again, for the scope, what the study covers, and the limitation, what the study does not cover, and then for the limitation, the weaknesses of your study, the limitations that you had aside from the time, from the respondents. For example, the other limitation is on the budget, especially if their study is about establishing. There are other explanation on the scope, delimitation, and limitation, but usually scope comes with the delimitation, the first paragraph, and the second paragraph deals with the limitation of the study. Okay. And then for the significance of the study, usually this comes with this refers to who are those beneficiaries and how they will benefit. So how to write this? Usually we will be starting from the ones in higher positions. For example, if your study was conducted in a certain school and the beneficiaries are the people in the school, so we'll be starting from, so who will be benefiting? For example, significance of the study. The results of the study would be beneficial to the following. For example, the first one is school administrator. Yan, school administrator. And then, school principal. And then, teachers. And then, parents. And then, students. And usually, the last beneficiaries, usually yung makikita natin ay future researchers. So, for example, school administrator, how will the school administrator benefit from the results of your study? For example, if the topic is on canteen evaluation, halimbawa canteen evaluation, tapos meron na kayong results tungkol doon sa evaluation of the canteen, of the school canteen. So, how will the school administrator benefit from it? For example, school administrator, for they will, halimbawa ang results, for example, the results are not that good when it comes to the evaluation of the school canteen. So the school administrator, the results will serve as a reference for the improvement of the school canteen for the coming school years. Yon. How about the school principal? This will serve as a guide. Yon. This will serve as a guide on how to This will serve as a guide on the better implementation of the rules in the school canteen. Then the teachers, the parents, so on and so forth. Again, who will benefit and how they will be benefited. Do you have any question on the significance of the study? Do you have any question on the significance of the study? Class? Wala? And then for the definition of terms, can I go to the definition of terms? Leaders?
Sure po.
Okay, for the definition of terms, usually the terms are defined in two ways or in two types. The conceptual definition and the operational definition. But for our research, we will be using only the operational definition. But you should also be aware on how to define the terms conceptually. Again, when it comes to conceptual definition, those definitions are from the authors. For example, marketing strategies. Marketing strategies. So, how will you define it conceptually? You will just be looking for an author who best defined it depending on the relationship of the term in your study. And usually, the format is, for example, marketing strategies. This term refers to, so the meaning, this term refers to, and then you have to write or include who is the author and what was the year it was defined. For example, marketing strategies, this term refers to, tapos the definition, and then you have to include the author. For example, Cubero, 1998. Yun. Or for example, year 2010. And then, for the operational definition, the definition is dependent on how the term was used in your study. So, if you will be defining marketing strategies, ilalagay mo doon, in this study, this term refers to the strategies used by the small-scale fast food chains in Padre Garcia during the community quarantine. Yun. Because you are referring to the marketing strategies used during the time of quarantine. Again, when it comes to conceptual definition, those definitions are from the authors. And then when we say operational definition, you make the definition, you define the term based on how it is operationally used in your specific study. Okay? So how many terms? How many terms? It will be depending on the title, of course. So what terms you will be including? Those terms that will be mentioned many times in your research. Or those significant terms that the readers may find it difficult to understand if it will not be defined operationally. So for example, if you have 10 terms, you have to alphabetize the listing of your terms. So from A to Z, you have to alphabetize it. It cannot be in alphabetical form, but it's better for the format itself if it is in alphabetical order. Okay? So, sir, how many terms? It will be depending on your title. For example, in the topic establishing a family business. So most of the terms are family business, tapos food business, what else? Yung pandemic, kasi it has something to do also with pandemic. Or if you will be mentioning most of the times the term challenges, struggles, because for example, challenges are different from one concept to another. Because the challenges that you are referring to in establishing a family business is, for example, capital, no, capital, business plan, ano pa, capabilities of the family members, if they are into business really or naisip lang nilang mag-business kasi pandemic, yun. Sino may question class sa definition of terms?
Sir,
Yes, Aubrey?
operational nga lang po.
Yes, operational lang. Operational lang.
Thank you po.
Kasi yung conceptual naman, madali siya. Though, mahirap din maghanap ng napakagandang conceptual definition. But at least, you know how to make a how to look for conceptual definition. But what's more important is your operational definition. But then, you have to base also your operational definition to the conceptual definition. Baka naman sobrang layo. No? Baka naman sobrang layo. So, meaning you have to read also the definition of the authors on a certain term, so that you can have an idea of what the term that you will be operationally defining. Okay. So for chapter 2 is the review of related literature and studies. So again, I mentioned also a few weeks ago on how to make the RRLS. You have to make, since we will be following thematic format, when say thematic or topical, you have to make topics or themes related to your title so that you can easily look for the related literature or significant literature. Because if you will not be listing topics or themes related to your title, you will find it difficult and your RRLS will be not that very much related or significant to your study. Because the tendency of the students is just to copy-paste. Even the studies or the literature are not that related to your title. That's why you have to base your RRLS on the scope, the limitation and limitation, as well as with your objectives and as well as with your title. Yun. Kasi baka may mapasingit na hindi importante or baka may mapasamang hindi mahalaga or baka may hindi ka naman mapasama na mahalaga. For example, in establishing courier service in Padre Garcia, Batangas, what are the possible topics or themes that you will include in chapter 2? Meaning you have a label, for example, review of related literature and studies. This chapter presents the studies that are related and significant to this study. Tapos you will be enumerating, without numbers you will be enumerating the topics. And those topics will be, those are your basis on what literature studies that you will be looking for, that you will be including in your chapter 2. For example, in establishing courier service in Padre Garcia, Batangas, what are the possible topics? Divine grace. Courier service. Courier service. Or you can also include types of courier service. Types, kinds.
How about the benefits po? Pwede po namin na-include.
But then you can include that, but you can use other terms. For example, halimbawa, courier service as a lucrative business. Tapos challenges, ganito, struggles in, tapos the future of courier service, parang ganoon. Yung parang siya ay may level din na ini-introduce mo siya from small na palaki or malaking, parang may highlight, naka-highlight siya. Parang habang binabasa mo siya, Ganun pala. Kaya, that's why I am planning to establish also a courier business. Yun. Usually, do not include history, but you can mention on how it started. No. Again, for the years, dito sa RRLS, the oldest, maybe 10 years ago. 10 years ago, so 2010. But then again, if you will be if it is a must for you to include this very old, for example, study or literature that wherein the date is, for example, 1962, you look for other authors who use that certain study para naman not too old. So ang allowable natin 2010 as the oldest. Yon. For the citation, I will be sending you a copy from APA, American Psychological Association. It is written there on how you will be on how to apply citation. If you have one author, two authors, three authors, 4, 5, so on and so forth. No, the only difference is when you mention the author before the paragraph or after the paragraph. Just a review. So if you will be mentioning, for example, my name, Cubero, 2010. So in the study of Cubero 2010, and then 2010 is inside the parenthesis, then you will be including what I said or what I stated. That's 2010. That is how we will be using that is the format. But if you will be writing first what the author said, and then you will be writing the name of the author at the end of the paragraph, the surname of the author together with the year, both of them are inside the parenthesis. Open parenthesis, Cubero, comma, then 2010, close parenthesis, then period. Yon. Just refer to the copy that I will be sending you. That is from APA. I think that the year is 2015. But it's still being used today. Yung sa 2015 ng American Psychological Association. There are other ways to cite yung mga aside from APA, there are other types on how to apply citation, but we will be using APA. Okay. So meaning the five groups should be at least listing possible topics or themes that are related with your title or with your working title, so that your RRLS should be meaty or marami siyang laman. But what you will be including in the RRLS, pag may nakita kayong sobrang ganda, you can paraphrase it tapos isama mo siya sa introduction. You can include in the introduction. Please avoid citation in the introduction, because if you will be including many authors in the introduction, your introduction will appear as if it is RRLS. No, hindi naman siya RRLS. Mas maganda in the introduction yung sarili mo. Tapos yung mga nabasa mo, pinagsama-sama mo, ginawa mong sayo, maganda siya. No? Kung hindi maiwasan, may magandang sabi si author na talagang pang-introduction, pwede mong siyang isama. Pero huwag sobrang dami. And then, dito sa RRLS, avoid using according to always. Yung laging according to Cubero 2010, according to De La Cruz 2011, according to, use other words than according to. Meanwhile, or yun nga, transitional devices. You can use that. But then be mindful or be careful in choosing what transitional device that you will be using. Kung siya if it is an add-on or complementing, you should be using other terms. Because maybe if it is contradicting, you will be using words that are associated with contradiction. On the contrary, ganun class, there are lots of transitional devices. And that will make your RRLS more than just a narration or more than just an enumeration of what the other authors said, mentioned, suggested that are related with your present study. No. So you can use transitional devices. How long is chapter 2? It depends on the topic, or it depends on the volume of the information that you have researched. Not too short but not too long. So that's why I can't give you how many pages. But upon reading it, we can identify if it is enough or not enough. No. That's why you have to list several topics that are very much related with your title. Again, the oldest date is 2010. 2010. Or maybe for the topics, you have at least maybe at least five related topics or 5 related themes. But the themes or the topics are dependent kasi nga doon sa inyong title. Sa tingin ko naman, wala namang, your titles are different from one another. Ang medyo related lang ay yung family food business at yung marketing strategies. But the focus doon sa isa to establish. Dito naman sa isa, yung ginamit na marketing strategies. But the rest, magkakaiba kayo ng gagawin. And then the last part of chapter 2 is synthesis. Synthesis is the summary of chapter 2. You have to identify which among the related studies are very much similar. So pagkasama-samahin mo yon, you include the authors, but no need for you to include the year. For example, Cubero, De La Cruz, De La Rosa, and Castillo all mentioned that marketing strategies are very important in putting up a business. On the other hand, Abacan, Alagar, and Beleno disagreed on yun. So pagsasama-samahin mo yung pare-pareho, pagsasama-samahin mo yung kumukontra, or kung wala't pare-pareho, pagsama-samahin mo siya, dependent on its relationship with your title. Yan. Para, for example, if I have no time to read your very long review of related literature and studies, but upon reading the synthesis, I can better understand the importance of your research or those researchers, past researchers that are very significant with your thesis. Yon. Okay? Do you have any question? I think this is our last meeting because midterm exam na, tapos second quarter na. In advance, I will just introduce chapter 3. Chapter 3 is about methodology. Chapter 3 about methodology. So if you have enough time after your exam, you can draft a questionnaire. So as early as now, or I am sure naman you have identified this already. Who are your respondents? How will you be choosing the respondents? And how you will be making your survey questionnaire. All of the questionnaires, it's better if it is self-made because you can experience on how to make a questionnaire. But then you can adapt. When we say you can adapt, you can use the existing questionnaire that was used, or questionnaires that were used by the previous researchers. For example, if you are lucky enough to look or to find a ready-made questionnaire, that would be fine. Or maybe if that is related and some of the parts of it are not related, you can remove that. Or you can pattern, or you can use the existing questionnaires as your reference. Again, pwedeng gamitin, pwedeng i-modify, or pwedeng maggawa ng sariling questionnaire. That's why you will be mentioning, pag sarili mo, self-made questionnaires. Si questionnaires ay nakadepende sa SOP, title, at research paradigm. Para pag chinika natin, plus kita natin, from the title to SOP, to research paradigm, to questionnaire, kita natin ang masasagutan yung nasa SOP. Na yun ang mag-a-appear naman sa chapter 4 sa presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. So meaning sa second quarter, we will be accomplishing chapters 3, 4, and 5 plus your oral presentation. And for sure, virtual oral presentation. Were you able to look for a questionnaire? Did you attempt to look for a questionnaire, class? Any group who attempted to look for a questionnaire or to draft a questionnaire? Meron na ba? Hello leaders, meron na bang nag-try? Again, for example, itong sa marketing strategies, you can look for, there are lots of questionnaires on marketing strategies because we have to identify on what did they use. No? Or maybe, based on interview, they have this new marketing strategy. But then, more often than not, it's related with the existing strategies. Only then that during the time of pandemic, it was highly used or highly applied because of the pandemic. Who is the representative of Alagar? Who is the representative of Alagar? Or anyone from the group that I can ask questions with? Sino mga members ni Alagar dito? Hello? Meron bang members? Joanne Masakayan. Joanne, what's the update in your chapters 1 and 2, Joanne? What are the group's accomplishment, Joanne?
Inaayos na lang po, ginagawa na po yung chapter 2.
But you have research already for related literature and studies. Marami nang na-research. Joanne. Marami nang na-research.
Kakunti pa lang po.
Oh, sige, still have 1 week naman. For the group of the Mayuga,
Simula nag-ano na po sa RRLS.
But were you able to look for a questionnaire?
Hindi pa po.
Hindi pa. How about the group of Hernandez?
Hindi pa rin po.
Hindi pa rin. But what are the accomplishments of the group Divine?
Ang on process na lang din po ngayon ay chapter 2 po.
Okay.
Walang pa po ng mga reference.
Sige. Plus, before I forget, always save the websites or the list of the references that you used, ha? Save it all in Microsoft Word or any file that you want, that would be easier on your part to retrieve if you will be making your bibliography or your references. How about Aubrey?
Sir, ongoing po ang chapter 2. Bali po magko-compile na lang po ng mga citations
Okay.
na from mga members po.
Okay, thank you. How about Divine?
Chapter 2 na lang din po. I-arrange ko lang po ulit yung sa mga topic.
Okay. Because for the format, you will be using Microsoft Word, ha? Microsoft Word. Yon, Microsoft Word. The font style is Arial. And then the style is Arial, the size is 12. So Arial size 12. For the spacing, double spacing. And then for the margins, Yung left ay 1 point, siguro 1.5, and then top, right at saka bottom ay 1 inch. So yung left ay 1.5, tapos yung top, right at saka bottom ay 1 inch. Ha? Again, aerial 12, double spacing. Ang margin lang sa left ang 1.5, the rest ay 1 inch. Tapos isave nyo na lang muna. Yon. Okay? The format, I sent already the contents of chapters 1 to 5, no? So naka-bold lang yung mga major parts, no? Chapter 1 naka-caps lock, tapos naka-bold. Yun. Tapos the rest yung mga sub-parts niya naka-bold. Then for the margins, naka-justify ha, left and right. Yung pantay-pantay yung kaliwa, pantay-pantay yung kanan. Yun. And then leaders, I will be asking you to rate your group members. Do we already have group chat for the group leaders?
Wala po po.
Wala pa. Can someone make a group chat for the group leaders and then you include me so that I can give you the instructions there? So that you can also discuss among yourselves on how you will be giving points to your group members. The deadline of the submission is Monday class, Monday, ha? So that it is not a burden sa examination ninyo this coming Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Okay? For the examination, yung lessons, all the lessons that we discussed for the weeks 4, 5, and 6. 50 items. All of the questions are in multiple choice format. Yan, multiple choice. Yan. And then, who have other questions? Class, who have other questions? And then, class, you can use it's better that you will be the one who will be checking the grammar. The same thing if it is plagiarized. But I will allow you to use Grammarly, or you look for grammar checker online that is free, and also the plagiarism checker. Ha? Or you can rephrase the context of your those contests that you have researched with, so that it will not be considered as plagiarized. Yon. Questions, please? Or problems? Or clarifications? Class? Questions? Joanne?
Sir,
Yes, Joanne?
nung last time,
Yes?
ano po yung mga hindi nakapag-recitation last time?
Those who you were not able to connect or to join last week for the graded recitation, if we still have time on Friday, we'll have a special session on it on Friday. On Friday after your exam. So maybe in the afternoon. In the afternoon. Be sure you can connect na. You can join on Friday. Up to what time is your examination on Friday? Up to what time is your examination on Friday? So that we can allot few minutes for those who were not able to join last week for the graded recitation. But more or less that would be on Friday afternoon. Those are Masakayan, Rial, Laigo, Lailo Mary Joy, Rico Hermoso. Yun. So 1, 2, 3, or hindi na nakasagot sila, go 4, 5, parang 4 or 5 of you. Leaders, reminders, make the most of your encouragement to your members to be cooperative and participative. But then if you did your best, if you did your best already, and then maybe if some are not that very cooperative, we will be setting our highest points, average points, and lowest points for the score in the group task. Again, what I will be checking is chapters 1 and 2. There will be 2 grades, to rate, 2 ratings, one for the group and one rating as individual rating. One group grade and one individual grade. Yan. If you have concerns, just PM me, just send me a message. But then in rating class, before you give grades, we will discuss first on what will be our highest, average, and lowest grades that you will give to your group mates. I will assume that the leaders are the ones most responsible. But I also expect that the members are also responsible. Okay. Then for the questionnaire, you can start looking for related questionnaire, or you can start drafting your questionnaire. You can also make a search on Google Forms. In Google Forms, you can use that in making survey questionnaire, and it will be sent only online. And then using Google Form, it is an easy way of gathering data, because after those respondents answered your questions in the Google Forms, automatically it will create a spreadsheet in Excel, and then it will also have a graph based on their answers. Again, search on Google Forms or read something on Google Forms, or how to maximize the use of Google Forms. Do you have questions? I think you have no more questions. Good luck on the examination. I think our schedule is on Friday. Just read, understand what you read or what you read, so that you can have a better score on Friday. Okay, thank you for attending the class. God bless. You may now leave the Google meeting. Thank you.
Thank you po.
Okay.
Thank you po.